The Bob Murphy Show, episode 482.
There's a tidal wave coming. What you gonna do?
Get ready for another episode of The Bob Murphy Show, the podcast promoting free markets, free minds, and grateful souls. It's your source for commentary and interviews conducted by a Christian and economist. Now here's your host, Bob Murphy.
Hey everybody, another crossover episode. This time Adam and I are going through three recent speeches at the World Economic Forum, specifically from the Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, U.S. President Donald Trump, and the Argentine President Javier Milei. And it really just, when Adam and I were done recording, I just said, man, those were incredible speeches. And he's like, yeah, I know. I mean, this is not snooze fest time. This is really, I think, incredible and a pivotal moment in world history. And these three addresses help to underscore that. So I think you'll enjoy it. Hey, Adam.
Well, another World Economic Forum summit at Davos has come and gone, and once again, I didn't get an invite. If they ever invite you, Bob, you'd take me along as your plus one, right?
Possibly. Joking aside, do you know that they featured my book one time? Was that on your radar?
I have no idea. Which one?
For real? Oh, okay. The what was it? Understanding Money Mechanics from the Mises Institute. Wow. There was a thing where it was like you know how they have a big YouTube presence, the WEF, I think that's where they had the You'll Own Nothing and Like It or whatever.
Yeah.
So anyway, there was some guy doing it was a quick, 45-second review, or maybe it was 2 minutes or something, review of recent books on whatever, economics or money and banking, or I forget what the genre was, but it was out of four things that they featured, they spent 8 seconds going over my book, and it was funny. People were
did he just
me.
hold it up and say mostly harmless, and then move on to the next one?
No, I'm trying to remember. I mean, it was just a voiceover. It was just showing you didn't see the guy,
yeah.
But it was. But I mean, it was said something gives a good introduction to whatever modern money and banking. I forget how they said it, but it was. I didn't, so of course people were tagging me and saying, are you with the CIA and stuff like that? And I answered, of course, and said, well, if I were, I would deny it, right? Or I said no, but that's exactly what you'd expect me to say, something like that. But what I didn't know was I'm trying to say, did the guy who did put that out, did he know, at that point I had a whole series on Klaus Schwab and everything.
Right.
So that's what was so funny about it.
Yeah.
And so the point was was that guy an insider? Was that our man on the inside and he was trying to, or did he just, some intern or whatever, just looking around and, let me bang these up. Boom, check the box. I did my YouTube video for the week. I have no idea.
Probably the latter. Yeah.
Probably, but.
Yeah, I don't think they looked into you deeply and said, this guy really does think Klaus Schwab is the literal demon walking on earth. Or
they just said, but gosh darn it, he really explains the mechanism by which we're going to
love
take
him
over.
or hate him.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, there were three speeches at their Economic World Forum Davos thing that Bob and I thought were really interesting, and we want to play some of them and talk about them. Right, Bob?
Yep. So we'll be excerpting from three of the speakers. I guess we can tell people who they are, right?
I suppose we could.
So Mark Carney of Canada, Donald J. Trump. Where's he from again? U.S.
Greenland, Hornsland.
Yeah. And Milei. So that's what we're going to do.
Fabulous.
An interesting potpourri.
Very interesting. And we're going to lead off with the one you wouldn't expect, Mark Carney, because if you'd asked me to name who the PM of Canada was yesterday, I would have flubbed it. But he said one of the most interesting things, maybe ever.
Oh, are you being serious? You wouldn't have been able to come up with his name? Suppose I said, I'm just genuinely asking, if I gave you a list of 10 names and his was one of them, and I said, which one of these is the PM of Canada, would you have been able to pick it out?
Depends how sneaky you were. I mean, I knew Trudeau was out.
What if it was Mark Carney with a K was one of the choices? Would you have?
I don't believe the letter K is allowed in Canada.
Yeah. Anyway, the only reason I'm saying he's more on my radar because he used to be a central banker. So like when he got anyway. So okay.
No, I didn't know him like that.
All right. One last preface, folks, on this. The clip that I grabbed for this is from Glenn Greenwald, partly because I like the extra context that Greenwald gives, and it's good to see his reaction, but also because that's what put this on my radar. That it wasn't that I went and reviewed all the WEF speeches, but the fact that Greenwald spent so much time going through this Mark Carney one, and we got some, good example for you folks as to why Glenn Greenwald was like, holy cow, I can't believe this guy just said this.
Right.
That's what kind of made me pitch to Adam, why don't we just do a whole episode on this stuff?
Absolutely. For this one, I'm tempted just to play the thing and see if the viewers hear what we heard and what Glenn heard. Let's just let her rip. Mark Carney at the World Economic Forum.
For decades, countries like Canada prospered under what we called the rules-based international order. We joined its institutions, we praised its principles, we benefited from its predictability. And because of that, we could pursue values-based foreign policies under its protection. We knew the story of the international rules-based order was partially false. That the strongest would exempt themselves when convenient. That trade rules were enforced asymmetrically. And we knew that international law applied with varying rigor depending on the identity of the accused or the victim. This fiction was useful. And American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system.
I mean, it's so blunt. It's not even subtle or nuanced or euphemistic. He's saying there's this thing we all pretended existed, the rules-based international order. First, he said it was partially false, but then he goes on to say, look, this was all a fiction. And we knew it was all a fiction for all these years. But we all decided to just lie and pretend it was true because other countries suffered under it, under the fact that there was no rules-based international order. But we got to pretend that there was one because we were benefiting from it. So we had an interest in describing the system falsely as something benevolent, even though it never was. It was just helping us, which is why we affirm these lies. And then he goes on to say this.
Collective security and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. So we placed the sign in the window. We participated in the rituals. And we largely avoided calling out the gaps between rhetoric and reality. This bargain no longer works. Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
And all that crap, that horrible system was wonderful. And then it got turned on Canada, and now we don't like it so much anymore.
Yeah. So I, just in the interest of not just replaying Glenn's whole episode there, he went on to say that, critics were saying that, oh, that's very convenient that, you went along with it until it stopped suiting you and all of a sudden you're outraged. And Glenn was defending Carney and saying, yeah, he's admitting that. In other words, it's not like he's trying to come off like the good guy. He's saying, come on, guys, let's be frank about what we've been doing here and not kind of blew up in our face. So let's just, come clean. So yes, he wasn't defending, in other words, they're not the agreed victims here, but he's not painting himself as that.
And he easily could have just pointed at Orange Man bad, but he said this thing's been going on for several decades, and and the thing about the sign in the window was an allusion to the breakup of the Soviet Union. I think specifically in Czechoslovakia, if I remember right, the shopkeepers would have the sign that says "Workers of the World Unite," meaning they buy into the propaganda. Mm-hmm. And then eventually a few here and there started to just take that sign down and signaling, hey, we're not pretending to believe anymore. Maybe all the countries of the world should start doing that for this international rules-based order fiction.
Right. And so thank you for that, because I thought that was too, but I couldn't remember what country it was. And Glenn even, pointed that and said, it's not just that, oh, wow, he's using a provocative metaphor or something, but, in that analogy, it's making us, like we're part of an evil empire. It's, you know what I mean? It's not just like, oh, wow, times are a-changing. Like he's saying we've been participating in something that's monstrous and, maybe we need to stop doing that. So, yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for a while now that we're moving into a multipolar world, and we're seeing this in the U.S. I think is acting as if they realize we have a short window where we can kind of throw our weight around, and we better put some wins on the board while we can, because things aren't going to be like this 20 years from now. And that's partly to explain what they're doing.
We'll plant the flag in Greenland and start a nuclear war with China. It'll be great. The last hurrah of a dying empire. Yeah.
Just in term, so what he was doing there, notice, in case people, I think most of our listeners understand, but things like what the U.S. has been doing, like after Putin invaded, the U.S. just went around and started kicking people. Like if other countries didn't go along with our sanctions thing, we would just kick them out of the SWIFT international banking system. So it was, and some Russian citizen, the U.S. could just freeze their assets. And it's not like they had a trial and showed, oh, you're collaborating with Putin. Or was just, no, you're Russian. You got a bunch of money that you foolishly had, denominated in dollars or had in banks that are within our system. So the point was, people realized that, oh, wow, the global dominance of the dollar-based financial system and all of the convenience of, oh, we all use this one integrated system. If the U.S. just wants to flip a switch, the authorities, they can shut you out of global commerce, or 90% of it or whatever. And that was a huge bit of leverage that they had. And so that's, again, partly why I think a lot of the BRICS countries and whatever are scrambling to try to come up with, some alternate mechanism, just because they realize this is, we're too vulnerable. Right. So part of my point is, it's ironic that all the stuff, and this thing too, with the global supply chains and all that, and Trump threatening terror, like that's been Trump's go-to move. Even with the Greenland stuff, he's okay. Well, we'll put 100% tariffs on you. We're going to do that. And so I'm just saying the irony is, everybody, all the right-wing conservatives who are worried about you libtard free traders, don't you get it? Look at how vulnerable we would be to China if we got, our defense components imported from there, or the rare earths or whatever. So it's almost like, we're terrified someone might do to us what we've been doing to the rest of the world. So that's what's so funny about this. And yet we're always, oh my gosh, somebody might hurt us. We need to, have a $1.5 trillion defense budget because there's bad people out there, and we're just, bombing the crap out of people and capturing heads of state and whatever. So anyway.
It's too broad a question, but do you have any guesses as to what the future will be in terms of globalization over, 10 years from now? Will people fear these sorts of belligerent moves by whoever has the power to do them and stop having such global-wide supply chains and keep things, closer at hand? Or do you think people will do whatever the opposite is of that and entrench the thing and try and make it more stable or something?
Oh, okay, so they're already doing that. It was COVID did a lot too.
Right,
honestly.
for
it's
sure.
Not just worried about the U.S. sanctions on Russia. So it's already well underway that a lot of U.S. based companies that had stuff coming from Asia, for example, were sourcing and trying to say, can we get suppliers, whatever, in Canada or Mexico or something? Just again, not for geopolitical reasons, but just realizing that, wow, this is way too, we're too vulnerable here. That's too difficult. Let's get something closer to home. They've been doing that kind of stuff. And my prediction is, with the rise of stable coins, that is what's going to get a lot of financial institutions, and eventually even not down to the household level, but certainly, large financial institutions in all the developed countries, I think are going to develop the internal infrastructure just to be able to move tokens around on blockchains that initially will be pegged to the sovereign currencies, dollar, yen, euro, and so on. So there it won't seem like a big transformation economically. It'll just seem like, going to online banking or something, but it's not like the monetary order changed. But then once they get that all up and running, I think then it won't be so hard for them just to have a pull down menu and say, oh, instead of accepting tokens and doing our accounting in terms of, US dollar stable coins, why don't we do stuff in terms of stuff pegged to an ounce of gold somewhere, or Bitcoin or whatever. So I
was just about to ask you, like, we should be rooting for this decentralization, right? If the countries are finding a way to innovate their way out of the SWIFT system or whatever, maybe the next step is individual actors innovating their way out of the fiat currency in some sense, in a similar way. And I just like anything that moves from global governance to decentralized anything. And this looks like a piece of that puzzle or a movement in that direction.
Yeah, so that's what I think. So it's interesting. I'm a classic economist, like trying to say on the one hand, but on the other hand, so this way, no matter what happens, I can be like, no,
you're all over it. Yeah.
But because one of the questions with the Trump administration, being very friendly towards just blockchain-based finance in general and stable coins in particular, and I think there's lots of reasons. Partly they saw, if our regulations, like there's things like the Genius Act and stuff like that says U.S.-based stablecoin issuers have to have 100% reserves, but what can qualify is if you just have T-bills. And so the idea is like, if there's this growing market now in stablecoins, and there's a lot of financial institutions that are now just going to hold on their balance sheet, not deposits in a checking account or a money market fund, but they might hold hundreds of millions of, Tether or whatever, USDC. If those organizations now have to hold that many treasury securities, or T-bills, I should say, to shorter term, to back those up, now we've just instantly, like if the projections show by 2040 the stablecoin market in the world will be whatever, such and such $1 trillion. Well, if everyone has to have that many treasuries to back that up, then, we just found where are we going to finance the deficits over the next 20 years? That's where. So I think that's partly what they were doing. But also I think that solidified the convenience, like ensured that the dollar's hegemony would stick around for a while. Like now it's going to be easier for the dollar to be on one side of every transaction. But like I said, I think that's, like the... what was the communists used to say, the capitalists are like selling us the noose or something. Yeah. That again, the problem, like with the BRICS and everything, and why people for years have been saying, yeah, we know the dollar's bad, but it's the, the cleanest shirt in the dirty hamper or whatever metaphor they would use. They're like, what else are you going to do? You're going to go to the yuan or, the ruble. So their point was like, you can't go anywhere. But once, like I said, you build up this infrastructure, then it's just a click of a button. It's not hard to take some other token once you have all those rails set up that you're doing stuff on the blockchain.
Good point. So that fellow you mentioned earlier, one Donald J. Trump, he gave a nice long speech there. Anything you want to say about the clips before we play them?
Just there's nobody like this guy.
We're gonna so miss him when he's gone, because no one love him or hate him. He's a freak of nature.
What did Dave Smith call him? A cartoon character? I can't even.
Yeah, he's like a Dick Tracy character or something like that. Dick Tracy villain. Yeah, the speech he gave was all over the place, and well, you'll see. We have 2 clips. Should we dive in?
Yeah.
Bob, before we continue, I want to have a completely natural, totally spontaneous discussion about how awesome the new Scott Horton Academy is, and why everybody listening should go to scotthortonacademy.com/crossover and immediately sign up for it.
Exactly, folks. I knew I was going to like it. After all, I liked Scott. I've interviewed him on my show several times. I've seen him in long-form interviews like on Tucker Carlson. And I just thought, this will just be like that, but more so. And it is that, but it's even better. Just to give you an example, like Scott goes through a presentation and he's got multimedia. Like you can see the video of Saddam Hussein calling off names and having people taken out back. and I don't think they were given a retirement package. I don't know exactly what happened. I don't speak the language, but it didn't look too good for them. And lots of stuff like clips of Jimmy Carter praising the Shah of Iran, just all kinds of stuff like that, really helping you to understand how the heck did we get into this mess. And so I know it sounds like I'm just saying this for the ad, but it really is true that I'm not going to watch a movie or something later on. I'm going to get back to listen to Scott explain what the heck happened with U.S. foreign policy. So I can't recommend it enough.
Awesome. Remember, folks, go to scotthortonacademy.com/crossover, and you will get a great discount, and Bob and I will get a kickback, so you will be supporting these crossover episodes.
I want to stop it. It's a horrible war. It's the worst since World War II. They keep going. They'll exceed World War II. The numbers are staggering, how many people they've lost. They don't want to talk about it. Ukraine and Russia lost just tremendous amounts. And I'm dealing with President Putin, and he wants to make a deal, I believe. I'm dealing with President Zelensky, and I think he wants to make a deal. I'm meeting him today. He might be in the audience right now. But they got to get that war stopped because too many people are dying, needlessly dying. Too many souls are being lost. It's the only reason I'm interested in doing it. But in doing it, I'm helping Europe, I'm helping NATO, and I've until the last few days when I told them about Iceland, they loved me. They called me daddy, right, last time. A very smart man said, he's our daddy. He's running it. I was like running it. I went from running it to being a terrible human being. But now what I'm asking for is a piece of ice, cold and poorly located, that can play a vital role in world peace and world protection. It's a very small ask compared to what we have given them for many, many decades. But the problem with NATO is that we'll be there for them 100%. But I'm not sure that they'd be there for us. If we gave them the call, gentlemen, we are being attacked. We're under attack by such and such a nation. I know them all very well. I'm not sure that they'd be there. I know we'd be there for them. I don't know that they'd be there for us. So with all of the money we expend, with all of the blood, sweat, and tears, I don't know that they'd be there for us. They're not there for us on Iceland, that I can tell you. I mean, our stock market took the first dip yesterday because of Iceland. So Iceland's already cost us a lot of money.
It's just a poorly located piece of ice, you stupid Vikings. What do you even want it for? Just give me Greenland.
By the way, in case people are confused, and I went and looked it up, he should have been saying Greenland all through that.
Of course,
he got mixed up because he said a piece of ice. And what's interesting is, I looked on Snopes and whatever, and so people were, making fun of, oh, he screwed. And what's her name, Carolyn Levitt? Is that the press secretary? So she came out and I don't know if it was Twitter, but I think it probably was, and responding, to people saying, haha, Trump was calling it Iceland. And she said, no, he wasn't, Debbie. If you go refer to the written remarks, it clearly says Greenland. Do you see that rhetorical move?
I guess. Yes, I do.
And so, it would be one thing if she just said, no, he didn't. And okay, maybe Levitt didn't know. But when she specifically said, if you refer to the written remarks of his speech, you will see. She didn't say the transcript. She said, meaning the stuff he was reading off the or the speech they wrote beforehand, which, okay, I'm sure that is true, but that doesn't change the fact that he said Iceland 4 times when he meant Greenland. So anyway.
What you should have just went with is, yeah, it's called that now. We take it. We're going to make Iceland call itself something else. We're just going to take that name. It's a chunk of ice after all.
Yeah. Or hear me out. She could have said, yeah, he said the wrong word. Whatever. He was talking about ice.
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's a long speech.
Move on. Let's talk about the important things facing the American people right now. You're quibbling over, slip of the tongue. Gee whiz. But no, instead just brazenly, anyway, it's just crazy. So let me, before we, pile onto it, I do want to say there was, before when I said there's nothing like him or nobody's been like, I didn't mean he's a goofball or something. I just mean it's like a force, like you say, a force of nature, because a lot of the stuff he said was true. You won't have time to excerpt it all here, but I mean, he was talking about like the innovations in energy and all the, like he was talking about the problems with Europe and how they've just been crazy with the climate regulations. I mean, that's all true. Like they were really, like a couple of years ago, they were trying to blame it on Putin's invasion, but like the problem had started earlier, where they were concerned that they were going to have lots of people dying in the winter just because they had no natural gas and stuff. Like it was pretty incredible, like the price spikes and things that were happening with electricity.
Decommissioned their nuclear power plants and put up all these windmills and solar whatevers, and like turns out when winter comes, we don't have any electricity.
So anyway, so that, like I say, it was a blend of Trump saying stuff, and like open borders and whatever, and what are you doing? So like of that stuff, but then again, and we'll have another clip too that I grabbed just to show. But here, like saying, hey, Russia, Ukraine, they might have more casualties than World War II. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that would be unlikely. And he just rambles all over. He told that weird Godfather-style Switzerland tariff negotiation / extortion story. He just told that story.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to tell us that. I think he might have violated some military secrets as he was bragging about the Venezuela op. Like, are you supposed to be saying that what our tech is and how they need to go back to the drawing board? And
so for folks who didn't know, there was a part of that where he's just going, we have the best military in the world, or best weapons, and there's a point that they tried to fire anti-aircraft missiles at us, and we just pressed the button, and they turned around and fell back on the ground. And they said, what the hell happened? It's China and Russian technology. They're probably going to have to go back to the drawing board. And he's just going.
No way he was supposed to say that.
So.
Anyway. And talking about just blatant international price fixing schemes as far as prescription drugs with France. Again, it's just Godfather stuff. I imagine that sort of behavior makes it difficult for companies to plan for the future and how they're going to invest in, those supply chains again. Very strange.
But also how we showed some of it here, but just how much time he spent to the Greenland situation was incredible. And again, it was this weird combination of like, well, I think we're going to have more of it in the next clip, but this weird thing of like that, like sort of more Michael Corleone, telling Mo Green, name your price, I'm leaving in the morning kind of thing, and let it be known that, no, you're selling to us.
I got the distinct impression that wasn't on a teleprompter either. Like he said something right before he launched off. It's like, I'm not going to talk about this, but then he spent half of it talking about how I'm taking Greenland.
Right.
Just so you know.
But what my point though is, what I'm trying to get is that it's this weird, like on the one hand being this real strong arm tactic and, formally, we just want to buy it from you. But also like with this, like almost guilt trip of like, it's so unfair what you guys, we're just sitting over here pouting. And
if you're a proper schizophrenic, you can get away with that. You believe everything you say when you say it.
So, and also the irony too, is he was saying how, we defended it. People saw the clip was going around, it was viral, that, we defended it in, World War II, that it was like the Nazis were going to take it over. And then he like points to everyone and says, you all would be speaking German right now if it weren't for us, or Japanese. And I know people are saying, a lot of people in there do speak German, duh. But anyway, but it was just the irony of him saying like, there was this threat where this outside group was going to take it through force and we defended it from them. And then I don't know why we gave it back to you guys when we were like, he actually said that, like, it was kind of stupid. I guess there was different people in charge and they had their thing. Well, it wasn't as important back then, but it was.
I stopped that mugger who took your wallet. I don't think I should give it back, but you're welcome because I stopped that mugger.
So anyway.
All right.
So it was very interesting. Okay. And then here's another part.
Yeah, here we go.
Device for world protection, and they won't give it. We've never asked for anything else, and we could have kept that piece of land, and we didn't. So they have a choice. You can say yes, and we will be very appreciative, or you can say no, and we will remember. A strong and secure America means a strong NATO. And that's one reason why I'm working every day to ensure our military is very powerful, our borders are very strong, And above all, our economy is strong because national security requires economic security and economic prosperity, and we have the greatest that we've ever had. Biden and his allies destroyed our economy and gave us perhaps the worst inflation in American history. They say 48 years, I say forever, but I think 48 years is the equivalent to forever. Whether it's 48 years or ever, it's terrible, costing the typical family $33,000. What they did to this country should never, ever be forgotten. It's early, but he has to be rated as the worst president we've ever had by far. The auto pen did much of the damage. The auto pen, he was the auto pen president, because I don't believe a sane president would have ever signed the kind of things that he signed. But now grocery prices, energy prices, airfares, mortgage rates, rent, and car payments are all coming down, and they're coming down fast. We inherited a mess, but we've done a hell of a job in 12 months. Under my most favored nation policy for drug prices, the cost of prescription drugs is coming down by up to 90%, depending on the way you calculate. You could also say 5, 6, 7, 800%. There are two ways of figuring that.
Did I hear him right? Did he say it's early, but Joe Biden might go down as the worst president ever?
Yes, he did say
That's a weird sentence.
Right, and I was wondering, like, what would have to happen, like, to see the full effects of the auto pen?
48 more years, which is the same as infinity, obviously.
Yeah, so like, that's why I grabbed this because it had three interesting rhetorical moves. So yeah, the thing about it's early is like, that's a weird way to put it, and also just the worst. Like, whatever your views are, you know what I mean? Like, if you're obviously people like us, you know, Woodrow Wilson or FDR or Lincoln or something, but even if you are, you know, more normie kind of guy, you know, Richard Nixon or whatever you want to say, but the idea that would be Biden. And then the thing about, they say 48 years, I say forever. Either way, you know, it's like, no, the inflation like during the Civil War was clearly worse than what happened under Biden. So there's that element. And then the last move there too, where he said the drug prices are down 90% or 800%, depending on how you. So the thing is with that, if they took the drugs and gave them away for free, that would be a drop of 100% in the price. So if they dropped 800%, that would mean they're paying you 7 times the previous price to take.
That isn't how it works at your pharmacy, because I'm getting rich over here taking these drugs.
Yeah. So I mean, in fairness, like people are like, what? I think what he means is like if something fell 90%, now the new price is like 1/10 of it. So like you would have to increase it times 9 to get it back to. So I think that's what he means. Like, so
there's a lot of ways to do math, Bob. So many different ways.
But again, it's just anytime like, you know, oh, you cut your weight, you know, your weight fell by 50%. No, it fell by 200%. There's you can think of it that way too if you wanted, and I guess. But then that means there's never an objective answer. So when you say how much did something go down, it's like it depends. How do you want to think about it?
This guy, maybe it's just a clickbait joke, but I heard that he replaced Joe Biden's name with President Autopen in that hall of all the former presidents or whatever it is. He seems like the kind of guy who would do that.
Right. I saw that too. And like I saw the people outraged about it. And the only reason I think that it's real is because the Trump people piling on in the comments weren't saying like, you idiot, that's AI, or, you know, you fell for that, you dope. They were saying, you know, like he has the right to do that or whatever, or well, look at what Biden did, or, you know what I mean? So where were you when Charlie Kirk was shot?
You're aware how first ladies will like rearrange the furniture in the Lincoln bedroom. Yeah. This is the same thing. What are you complaining about?
Yeah. So I guess partly where I'm coming with it is this weird combination of, I mean, I think he had everybody's attention when he was sitting there talking about Greenland and what he was going to do. Like everyone's like, what's this guy going to do? Where are his intentions? But then, you know, throw it in just like, I guess what I mean is like, what's the point of putting a statistic if everyone just knows like, no, that's not right. Like, I don't understand what point that serves. It's kind of scary. It's kind of like when you were watching, remember Heath Ledger's Joker, and how every time he would tell somebody how he got the
different story
smile, and it was different. And you wonder like, why is he doing that? Is he crazy? Does he remember? And I think he was doing that for his men, because they would be the ones hearing him change the story every time, just make them know, like, whoa, this guy, you know what I mean? Because any individual hearing it would just be like, oh, that's how your face got like that. Okay, but all right.
So you're saying that Trump is the Joker?
No, I'm saying he's happy.
Why so sad?
What I'm, just to be clear, in case people are saying, what the heck are you saying? But what I meant was, I don't think Trump is stupid, right? And so I don't think that, oh, he's just rambling and he's, barely coherent, and he actually, I think he's aware, like the thing with the 90% of the 800, and he said, depending on how you measure, so I think he's aware that, yes, if I asked my accountant how much the drug prices go down, he would say 90%, Mr. President.
Right.
But he wants to say, but I want to say it's a bigger number, so let me do it this way.
Right.
So, and the same thing too, like they tell me the most inflation in 48 years. So like if he had to take a test and he was back in high school, he would know to put down, this is the highest inflation in 48, or you get what I'm saying? So like he's showing, I know what the correct answer, the mainstream answer is, but let me tell you this alternate way of looking at it. And so I think he's aware of that, and it's, anyway, that's just, it adds to.
I think that's a good point, a good insight. I think you're right. Like from a certain perspective, lots of perspectives, it would be easy to listen to this whole speech, watch the whole speech, which I did, and think this is senility or just a stupid man or an egomaniac. Okay, you nailed it on that one. But the more I watched, I got the mental image of how Jackie Chan would have these movies about drunken boxing.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I thought I was seeing up there. He's saying all these different crazy things and bouncing around like nobody knows, am I going to buy Greenland? Am I going to go to war with Europe? Am I going to do something else? I think part of whatever he thinks is the art of the deal is coming at you with all these weird spastic angles, and it just keeps people on their toes in a not good way.
Right, and that's, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
Okay, and that's what I was going to say. That was what I was getting with the Heath Ledger, that clearly he's very cunning, and he's intentionally telling those different stories. That's what I was getting. What the point of me bringing that analogy up was to say that it might be easy, like the casual observer might just say, "Oh, whatever, this guy's crazy," or "This guy, he's a buffoon." And I'm saying that, no, say what you will about Trump, and that's also why I was emphasizing a lot of what he was saying, like the critique of what the Europeans were doing. It was quite valid. So you could see that was Trump, love him or dislike him. That was Trump, giving that talk there, where saying a lot of stuff, and very frankly that, people who were for those policies and whatever say, yeah, this is finally somebody who's actually just talking straight. And yeah, we have been doing a lot, and these NATO countries haven't been doing their fair share and whatever. Finally, someone's saying the truth.
Or maybe he's casting about for the fake because. Like, I'm going to take this area, and you probably know that's going to happen, but maybe I need to give you a reason emotionally for you to latch onto. And I'm going to try a bunch of different ones. Hey, you guys are kind of being unfair with us, and look, we've done so much for you. And hey, we're going to make the whole globe more safer if you do this. And hey, we might pay you. And oh, by the way, I might kill you all over it.
Yeah.
Do any of those reasons make you want to give me this?
And
this
it's
country?
A piece of ice.
It's just a piece of ice. And so awkwardly located. I mean, it's not even a piece of ice in your cocktail drink. Again, what do you want this for? So, in stark contrast to our president, there's this country called Argentina that has one too. And he also gave a speech at this here Davos.
Both in tone and in substance.
And language. We have 3 clips of Mr. Javier Milei. What do you think, Bob? Should we just play all 3 and then discuss, or do you want to pause in between each one?
I think you can go ahead and just play all 3.
Let's do that. Do you have anything you want to say before we launch?
Nah, you can just let it rip.
I'll say something real quickly. This was his 3rd speech at Davos since he was elected president. And he remarks on it like these are 3 chapters in a novel he's writing or something. In 2024, I came and said this, and last time this, and here. Anyway, it was quite the speech. If you are a fan of Bob Murphy, a libertarian, Austrian economist, you're going to recognize some names if you listen to his speech and be pleased. So here we go. Javier Milei.
Good afternoon, everyone. I stand here before you to state categorically that Machiavelli is dead. For years, our thinking was distorted by the presentation of a false dilemma in the design of public policies, one in which we were supposedly faced with a choice between political efficiency on the one hand and respect for the ethical and moral values of the West on the other. As Professor Jesus Huerta de Soto points out in his work on dynamic efficiency, from that perspective, efficiency is not compatible with various schemes of equity or justice, but rather arises solely and exclusively from one of them, the one based on respect for private property and the entrepreneurial function. Therefore, the opposition between the dimensions of efficiency and justice is false and erroneous. That is to say, what is just can't be inefficient, nor can what is efficient be unjust. Actually, from the standpoint of dynamic analysis, justice and efficiency are two sides of the same coin. Without a doubt, the thinker who previewed this most clearly was Murray Rothbard, when he articulated the connection between the dynamic conception of economic efficiency and the realm of ethics.
Actually, why don't we talk about that? Because I forgot.
I was thinking the same thing. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just right out of the gate, I was like, holy, like he gives like a mini lecture or something. Like his speeches at Davos could be, pretty good midterm papers or something. Like if I had a student that turned that in, I said, that's pretty good. He's mixing political philosophy and he knows the Austrian school. Okay. So there for people, he was citing Huerta de Soto that, is a huge figure in Austro-libertarianism that I know Milei is very close to. So it's not just that Milei, occasionally name drops Hayek or even Mises, but I mean, he gets in the weeds, talking about Rothbard later in the speech. I don't think I have it in the clips I grabbed, but he cites Hans Hoppe, which is all the more interesting because he and Hoppe have been feuding. Yeah. And so anyway, but it was, you see him citing him there. So it's really interesting. And the whole speech, as he indicated there, is he's trying to show that, there's this alleged dichotomy between, moral virtues and the rule of law and stuff like that, and like things that we cherish in the Western tradition and economic efficiency. But no, that's because of, mainstream economics, and they went down the wrong path with, Pareto principles and stuff like that, if you have a natural law foundation in the Austrian approach, then you'll see there is no dichotomy, that, doing the right thing also is what leads to a booming economy, and respecting, individual rights and whatnot. That also boosts GDP.
Yeah, precisely. That's exactly what I was going to say. I have nothing to add. Let's move on.
Share of human conflicts arise from a failed interaction between natural law and positive law. Natural law is the law that ought to govern human beings because it accords with their nature, and it is therefore just in a universal sense. It is a law common to all men because it is intrinsic to their essence and therefore unchangeable and immutable. By contrast, positive law is the law written by human beings to govern according to their convenience. Thus, when positive law is in harmony with natural law, there will be justice. Otherwise, the law may be legal but not legitimate.
So before we talk about the remarks, are you creeped out by the shadow?
Yes, I was just about to bring it up. Did they do that intentionally to make it look like the specter of death was moving across Javier Milei as he talks about natural law and how it's great as opposed to the demonic positive law? What?
Well, yeah. So for people who are listening to the audio, it's like behind him there's, has like the background of the WEF. But then it looks like this shadow. You almost get the sense that like Godzilla is approaching from the front.
Yeah,
and is blocking
for a second
the
I was
light.
like, is there a sniper moving in between the light source but no, I think it's behind him on the electronic display. I think it's decoration or something.
Yeah, right. So I don't know. So you think the people in the audience live could see that behind him? That's not just an artifact of the broadcast?
That's my guess, yeah.
Because it's distracting. I don't know why
it's awful. It's awful.
Unless they do it so people don't doze or something. I'm being serious. Like, I don't know why they would do that.
I literally thought that whoever ran that board was making an editorial comment with a shadow or something.
Okay, well, the only thing though is I noticed it. We were prepping for this episode, Adam, behind Milei, but now that we were doing the episode here, that also was going on with Mark Carney.
Oh, I didn't. You see, I didn't remember.
So
I
that's
didn't notice it there.
Or they didn't like what he was saying either. He said, "Remember, there is a trap door on the podium.
That's
Just
right.
Keep that in mind." Okay, so yeah, so as far as the substance of that part, so again, it's not just that he's a trained economist and that he knows the Austria. He also knows like political philosophy and legal theory and can talk about the difference between natural law and positive law.
He's channeling Stefan Kinsella and taking a swipe at positive law. Well, I mean, talk about pearls before swine, given this speech at Davos.
And just showing how much, remember how we were so disheartened after the whole Venezuela operation and how all the right-wing pundits were like, well, yeah, I mean, there's no one with this military strong enough to stop us. What do you mean international law? What the heck is that? No, it's just whoever has the most tanks wins. It's legal. What? So, no, actually, that's not true. And especially people who allegedly cherish, the Western tradition and whatever, our Greco-Roman heritage. Like, how do you not know that?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. This is a breath of fresh air. We have his closing statement also, the end of his speech. You ready for it, Bob?
Yeah, so let me just, again, so we didn't get hip deep into it here because I knew we had, so much other material to cover, but Milei goes through and he gives a pretty technical exposition of, in mainstream neoclassical economics, like why people might think that like you couldn't achieve efficiency without government intervention in markets, and it's so technical I don't even think it's worth me getting into. Like, I'm actually going to do a separate podcast episode, I think, for the Infi podcast, just walking through. It'll take me 10 minutes to explain this is the theory he's giving in terms of like regulation and why mainstream economists think it's justified for the government to come in and do certain things if there's an economies of scale and stuff like that. And the limitations in terms of what's called the welfare theorems of economics. And then why, but if you have a dynamic approach and understand like the importance of entrepreneurship and it's like the cost curves aren't just given and things like that. Then you get this balance once again. So anyway, he goes through all that. And then now here he's going to go into, Judaism and the heritage we've got from the Western tradition. And then he's just going to have a kind of ending the speech on a high note. Like So it was a good speech just rhetorically, besides, and I happen to love all the economics that he packed into it.
Yeah, it was a beautiful speech. We'll put links in the video description and the show notes at heymannature.substack.com. And I recommend you listen to them all. They're fascinating, but especially Milei's, because it was legit inspiring. So here's how he closed out.
I would like to leave you with a reflection on this week's Torah portion. Parashat Bo describes the moment when Moses confronts Pharaoh, the symbol of the oppressive power of the state, to warn him that if he didn't free the Hebrew people, the final 3 plagues would fall upon Egypt. When Pharaoh refused, the plague of locusts came, which meant famine. Then came the plague of darkness, meaning the loss of clarity in decision-making. And finally, the plague of the death of the firstborn, which illustrates the fate of a society that denies liberty. The analogy with what is happening in the West today is crystal clear. For some time now, and for some strange reason, the West began to turn its back on the ideas of liberty. That is why in this same place in 2024, I stated that the West was in danger as a result of having embraced increasing doses of socialism in its most hypocritical form, which is wokeism. In turn, in 2025, I explained the mental parasites sown by the left in humanity. However, 2026 is the year in which I bring you good news. The world has begun to awaken. The best proof of this is what is happening in the Americas with the rebirth of the ideas of liberty. Therefore, the Americas will be the beacon of light that will once again illuminate the entire West, thereby repaying the civilizational debt with expressions of gratitude towards the foundations in Greek philosophy, Roman law, and Judeo-Christian values. We have a better future ahead, but that better future exists only if we return to the roots of the West, which means returning to the ideas of liberty. May God bless the West. May the forces of heaven be with us. And long live freedom, damn it. Thank you very much.
Oh, I really hope this guy is successful in his endeavors in Argentina. It would just be heartbreaking if that great rhetoric just ended up being associated with, we tried free markets, but the country just went down in flames or something, and that's probably the right way to bet on even money, because he's up against, all the corruption that's been there for decades, if not centuries. And, he's got a lot of people working against him.
Yeah, there's just so much there. It's hard for me to. Again, he's like a force of nature too, yeah. On the level of Trump, like just like holy cow, like what an amazing thing. And so just to unpack some of that stuff, because I know there will be cynics looking at that, and they'll like one of the big things that people who are, I think, similar to you and me in an overall worldview and how we're very skeptical of, geez, why does it seem like the U.S. government is so tightly tied to the Israeli government and things, and so. As I'm sure you've seen, Adam, like one of the things is Milei like went over to the wall and is, crying against the wall and everything. And I believe is formally converting to Judaism. And so for obvious reasons, a lot of people are suspicious of that. And, some people just because, we don't like people who are like that. And others, more neutral stance in terms of foreign policy, whatever your take is on that. And so, they might recoil at this, but on the other hand, I want to say as a Christian and a Bible believer that like that's what am I trying to say? It is correct if you're a champion of liberty and you're an anti-statist to look at Moses was saying to Pharaoh, "You've enslaved my people. God wants you to let them go." And then Pharaoh says no, and these plagues hit. And I never thought of the nature of those, like famine and then blindness, and then of course you're destroying your own progeny with your stubborn refusal to grant freedom to others. Yeah. Like that actually was beautiful. Like I never thought of it in that fashion before. Yeah. That seems like kind of like a Jordan Peterson type of thing of
right.
What does this story really mean if you think about it?
Right.
So anyway, so that was all great stuff. And I love the idea, that on paper, the idea that, we in the Americas, don't you in Europe are in trouble right now. And we're going to go ahead. But you know what? It's only because we've built on, we've been standing on your shoulders, and we took the, from the Greeks and the Romans and the Jews and the Christians and everything, we took it all over, and thanks so much. And look, we're going to take the ball and run with it. And then we can show you the path, and you can, right. And that would be so great, except like you say, I know Milei's in trouble in Argentina and his own. And also he's kind of, he didn't say it, but you almost get the sense that, what happened in Venezuela, I think that's probably good for those people in a way. And I certainly like what Trump's doing with, permitting nuclear reactors and stuff. This is good stuff. And there's a lot going on that I don't know that I would say, right now the Americas are just unleashing freedom and liberty and prosperity is just around the corner.
I agree with everything you just said. I said this to you off air, but in my crappy text transcript, AI transcript, I thought he said that America was leading the way in liberty, sucking up to Trump. I can understand why a man in his position would do that, but it made me think less of the speech at the end. It's like, do you really view what Trump's doing the way, in that way? But the better translation that was done live or by an actual speaker, not a computer, was the Americas. Mm-hmm. Like, that's better. Maybe, hopefully. I don't agree with Milei's foreign policy. I don't know if he's truthful about his conversion to Judaism or whatever. But I can see practical reasons for trying to suck up to the powers that be if you're trying to undertake such a job as to unsocializing an entire country. You could do it for tactical reasons, if for no other. But throw all that aside, he wants more free markets, and we have to root for the success for that endeavor. We have to. for the sake of the perception of the ideology and, oh, by the way, all the people that live there, because their lives will be better.
Yeah, let me just say, again, in the interest of fairness and balance, that there are a few asterisks in terms of stuff Milei has done that, like shipping gold out and just odd things. But on the other hand, you can see he's not bluffing. You know what I mean? He's not just name dropping or something, like, oh yeah, Austrian economics, because that's cool now, or something. Like, he clearly has read the stuff. He's a trained economist. He actually published, he has a lot of peer-reviewed publications and things. And he's, coming from the banking world. I think he was the chief economist for HSBC's branch somewhere in Latin America or something. So
he's a convert. Like, he studied all this and became middle-aged and then had a change of heart, which is it's completely different if a young 20-something, goes into economics wanting to be an Austrian. That's a whole different thing. But
yeah. And I also have heard that he's mentioned my book Chaos Theory, like in an interview, like people sent me the clips. And then I also heard that he told some of his like ministers to go read it. Like, some people reported that to me. And I will say too, with some of the stuff, like when he is like being very pro-Trump and pro-United States, and some people are like, why is he doing that? Why doesn't he just, he doesn't need to. And I've gotten feedback from people like Spanish speakers and like who are either literally in the country or just, closer and have a better sense. And they're telling me like, Bob, you just, you guys in America, you don't get it, that down here with our politics, the United States means capitalism. And so when he's saying he's with the United States, that's just a signal to the various factions in terms of his domestic politics to mean, I am pro-capitalism, I'm not a socialist. And
Coca-Cola and Levi jeans.
Yeah. And they're saying like, you're like it's lost in translation is kind of what they're saying. Right. And like you're saying too, they're like, you have no idea how tenuous his grip is right now. Like, there's all of these unions and commies and whatever, they hate his guts and are just doing everything they can to try to stop him. And so
it's not a bad tactic to be cozy with the world's bully / protector. If you get on the wrong side of that, they might come and abduct you and your wife.
Yeah. And he, like, one of the big strikes against him was he, over the summer, like, got a $20 billion line of credit.
Yeah.
And my understanding is like they tapped it a little bit, but then when Milei's party did so well in the midterms, they paid back the loan, like they paid that back, in other words. Like, so he's been running a budget surplus. Like, he balanced the budget and started running a surplus like 2 months into office. But that line of credit was there just, in case investors got spooked, and so he was trying to like reassure investors around the world that no, our bonds that are, denominated in dollars or whatever are good. Don't worry about it. And then that may have partially helped him, get his party to get through the midterms. But anyway, so I have a lot of people telling me, Bob, your earlier cynicism was misplaced. Like, Milei knows what he's doing and whatever. So anyway.
How can you root against a guy who literally afueraed a whole bunch of government departments on his first day, out, and then he created a new one called the Department of Deregulation, and put all his energy into that? How can you not be rooting for that guy?
Yeah, and like you say, if for no other reason than just this is clearly like the left would love nothing more than this to blow up in his face and to have poverty go through the roof and all kinds of corruption and whatever. So, yes.
Yeah, the Peronist would come sauntering back into power on a red carpet going, yep, see, that's why you need state-managed industries and socialism.
Yeah. What I don't understand is how anyone's getting around with no roads.
Yeah, exactly. It's chaos theory. Well, you should know. You wrote a book about this. You tell us how. I assumed it was jetpacks, but you didn't specifically say.
Yeah. Maybe they just give everyone helicopter rides. That would.
There you go. Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah.
That was a what's the thing? Dog whistle. Dr. Murphy just did a dog whistle there. Well, I thought this was a cool idea. Those are 3 amazing speeches. Again, folks, I recommend you seek them out in their entirety. I always thought these things were boring unless they were telling us to eat bugs or whatever, but those 3 were definitely worth listening to. Do you have anything else you want to tell the good people?
Maybe that's why they had the ominous shadow in the background, because normally the speakers are really boring and like it just didn't occur to them.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so every few minutes you're like, someone coming to get him? All right, ladies and gentlemen, check out bobmurphyshow.com. Visit his YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Do likewise to mine, Heyman Nature. Use quotes, you know why. And visit my Substack, please, heymannature.substack.com, where I write and do bonus stuff for paid subscribers. Thanks for all your insight and wisdom, Bob. And say goodbye to the nice people.
Goodbye, folks. Thanks for being so nice.
You've just experienced another episode of The Bob Murphy Show, the podcast promoting free markets, free minds, and grateful souls. For more information and to subscribe to this podcast, visit bobmurphyshow.com.